I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackHere.com, and today we're going to break down the K-Tech Razor RR shock install on our STG R3 project bike. Okay, so this has turned into a lot more of a long-term project than I ever thought it was going to be. I really expected this bike would have been gone at the end of the year last year, but then my little buddy started riding it on the racetrack. He's riding pretty well, it's getting faster, so you know what? We're gonna go ahead and change the suspension on the bike now. He's had the stock stuff front and rear, okay? Non-adjustable, very basic stuff. And you know what, I'll give the kid credit, he's ridden pretty good with it. If you go to Grattan, this will make sense to you. You know, he's doing basically a flat 40. We've had a lap timer on the bike only a couple of times more to look at what his top speed was on the GPS, but you know, he's carted a whole bunch of 40s riding by himself or with an instructor now, so that's not horrible, okay? And he started to drag things. Well, he's dragging his shifter. That's a bummer, okay? So we're gonna make some adjustments to the rear sets, get some more height out of it, and I wanna change the suspension too, so we can alter things like the ride height. We decided with this bike to give K-Tech a shot. Okay, the stock shock weighs 6.6 pounds. The Razor RR, which is one of 3 versions they have available from K-Tech for the R3, weighed 5.4. Okay, so you got 1.2 pound weight savings. The 3 models, they're all different. This one currently, and all these prices are as of today, this retails for $895. It features compression adjustment, remote reservoir, rebound adjustment, adjustable length, adjustable preload. The Razor RR is focused on track riding and racing. They've tweaked the internals just a little bit over the one that's in the middle, the Razor R, which is still a great shock. And it's also, its length, its overall length is a little bit longer to get the geometry that a lot of the R3s are now running that are being ridden club racing and or the Moto America Junior Cup. When we go down to the next shock, $795, the Razor R. Very similar to what you see here, almost identical. Adjustable compression, rebound, preload, and ride height. The shock is a little bit shorter. Overall, you can't get quite the same length out of it. And the internals are just a little bit different than what you have here, okay? Great shock for track day riding and even club racing too. And then they have the light, okay, which is $495. No remote reservoir, adjustable rebound, and adjustable ride height, and of course preload. Very affordable and a massive upgrade from the stock shock. Who would that be right for? Obviously if you want to do it for street, but even for track day riding. You know, if you don't want to spend that $795 or that $895, but you do need more compliant suspension, that light shock is a great way to get that done and save a ton of money. If you like what you see so far and you're interested in what it takes to get this on the bike, just stay tuned. We're going to show you every step of the way, the install. Okay, so to begin the install, we need to remove a little bit of the bodywork. I have to be able to reach the upper shock clevis, which is tucked up inside the bodywork here. So we'll remove the rider seat, little side trim panels, probably the lower fairing. This might look a little different than your bike. You still have your OE bodywork on, it's definitely gonna look different. You know, odds are if you're installing a K-Tech Razor RR shock, you've already committed the motorcycle to a track only bike, as we have here with our STG R3. So this may translate pretty well. Go ahead and grab the side panels. Okay, now before I support the rear of the bike, get ready to hold it by the foot pegs, what I want to do is I want to loosen up the fasteners for the shock, both top and bottom. These are going to be torqued down there pretty well. And I want to loosen them before I get the bike all up in the air and supported more than it is. 17 millimeter. I'm going to use a 3/8 ratchet. Just kind of start by breaking it loose a bit, and then I'll put a backup wrench, and you can see that was on there. If you want to use an impact gun, you could do that. So what we'll do is we'll just effectively just run the nuts off. the end of the bolt, we're going to leave the bolt in place. The swing arm on the right side here of the bike has an access hole in it. The other side, the swing arm, does not, so I just have a wrench in there holding the nut. And there it is. You can see they use a locking nut. Okay, I'll lower the work table just a little bit so I could get to this upper one a little easier. You know, expect some torque here. Same gig, we're just going to run the nut off. Then we'll be ready to raise the back of the bike, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. It's really important you support the thing properly. I've got a pit bowl rear stand and then some pit bowl jack stands that I'm going to use underneath the foot pegs. You can also, if you do not have the pit bowl jack stands or something equivalent to that, a Moto-centric product, you can also use just a standard set of automotive jack stands to hold by the foot pegs. Okay, now we need to be able to raise the motorcycle from the rear and then support it by the frame and or the foot pegs. Okay, typically on a race bike you have rear sets with fixed pegs, so the easiest way to do that is to support the bike by the rear sets. Begin by raising the rear. I've already dialed the height of these in, so I'm just going to slip them under there. This step is actually easier to do without a work table, to be fair. Because here I'm also kind of challenged with the width of the work table itself and the jack stands. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put the weight onto the jack stands like so. Notice I left the rear stand on the spools. Okay, now we need to push the bolts out. I'm going to start with the one on the bottom, and notice I'm kind of working the handle a little bit of that rear stand to change the pressure that I have on that swing arm. Just helps take the tension off the bolt. You got to kind of work this one out like so. And now you can just let the tire rest on the table. So there is the lower bolt. From here the shock should be loose, which it is. The upper, just go ahead and pull that out. Now we can remove the unit from the motorcycle. Okay, so before we begin the install of the K-Tech Razor RR shock on the Yamaha R3, I want to make sure that we have it dialed in before we get it on the bike. Just going to make it a little bit easier. One of the things we want to change is the ride height. You're able to adjust the length of the shock. From the factory, this is 276 mil eye to eye, and we want to increase that between 283 and 285. In order to do that, you have to loosen the adjuster here at the bottom. 22 mil wrench, 7/8 will also fit. Loosen the jam nut. And you can see you're able to rotate that. On the shock, as with other brands that we've dealt with in the past, you'll find there is a safety line, okay? It's a groove that's cut into it. Okay, I pulled this out of the shock only to be able to illustrate more clearly where that line is, and it is right here. Kind of tough to see, like I said, and I think the flashlight may actually have made it a little bit worse. So we don't want to expose any more threads beyond that line. Okay, so I'll reassemble this, and then we will adjust it accordingly. Okay, I have this dialed in. Once again, it's going to be really hard to see it, but the jam nut is literally, the edge of that jam nut is right on that machine groove. I have not tightened this up yet. I will tighten the jam nut once we have this on the motorcycle. Now I want to make sure that the rebound, the compression, and the preload are all at the recommended settings. Once again, those are contained right here in the owner's manual. Preload is measured from the bottom 7 mil. That is right on 7 millimeters. The rebound. 16 clicks out for rebound and 10 clicks out for compression. So what we'll do is we'll tighten it all the way up. Okay, there's 0. And there is 16. And there is 10. Now, I want to make sure that the spring collar, the preload collar, is snug, right? There's a fastener in there, internal hex, that looks like it is probably 3. Yep, that is tight. We'll check this. Also tight. Just come here. Those are 4s. Verify those are snug. Okay, now we're ready to install the shock on the bike. Slip it up in. And once we have it in position up top, go ahead and grab that uppermost bolt. We'll push it through. That'll hold it for us. Now the rear, this is why I did not snug that height adjustment. It's going to allow us to pivot that and get the shock installed. There are 2 spacers supplied. One has to go on either side of the shock, and you can see they are of the same height, okay? What I'll do is I'll get one in position first. Grab our shock bolt, pass this through. And I want to slide it through just enough to capture that spacer, kind of hold it, like so. Okay, now that's not going to just line up. This is where we need to actually manipulate the back of the bike. Okay, once I have that spacer held by the bolt, I'm going to have my assistant here raise the swing arm up just a little bit so we can get the fastener to slide through the shock. A little bit more, bud. Okay, right there, stop there. I'm going to have you stay here. We need to get the other spacer in position. Alright, and you're good to go, kid. You can let it hang. Okay, now real quick, just want to get that reservoir up here in position. We're not going to tighten these now, we're just going to put them in there just so it's supported, out of the way. These are bolting right to the stock passenger peg holes that are in that subframe. Okay, I had to find some fasteners that were in my spare parts bin. Okay, those are in there temporarily. Now we can get the nuts for the rear shock bolts. Get those on. We'll be ready to torque everything down. Okay, now we can go ahead and just lift the rear of the bike. Pull the jack stands. Don't need those anymore. Put those to the side. Then we can torque the fasteners top and bottom. All right, from here, I'm going to go ahead and torque down the bottom first. Okay, that one's good. Hand me the wrench. Reach that good. Then we'll hit the upper. I do not typically use a torque wrench. If you've seen my videos, you already know that. If you prefer to use one, now would be the time to research the spec and grab your torque wrench. Okay, so now remember the shock length, the overall length of the shock. I did that off the bike because I want to really illustrate where that safety line is, the line that you do not want to cross. Okay, just so you're aware, you can adjust the height on the bike. Okay, once you have it all mounted up, no problem. You loosen the jam nut and then you're able to rotate the upper portion to set the height where you want it. Once again, the key to the whole deal is that you make sure you do not go past that line, okay? And when we're referring to that line, it is on the other side of the jam nut. So it's with the jam nut run all the way up against this, okay? Never extend beyond that. So from here, just need to snug the jam nut up and we're good to go. This stuff is always kind of limited access. You know, this bike here is probably one of the easier ones I think I've ever worked on in terms of being able to get in here and set that shock height. You know, a lot of the other bikes, boy, it's really tight getting in there. Okay, so this one's actually kind of simple. Okay, the install is all done. We're gonna pair this up with their fork cartridge kit as well. So we're gonna do the suspension front and rear on the R3. A couple of things I wanna cover now. It's pretty important stuff. We changed the ride height of the bike. And it's got the swing arm down a little lower than it was before, okay? This used to clear, no problem. Okay, we're gonna have to make a little adjustment to the race lower. That's not a big deal. So look those kind of things over before you take the motorcycle out and ride it for the first time. All the settings are at their baseline as suggested by K-Tech. The bike is sprung for the rider who is going to ride the bike. That would be my son, Max. The first time you ride it, the best practice is to have a new set of tires on it. We will do that before we go down there. You don't wanna, make judgment or tune suspension, especially new suspension, off of an old set of tires. The tires are one of the most important parts of the suspension overall, okay? So when you go with that shock and a fork cartridge kit, start off with a new set of tires. Get your baselines in there from the sag to the clickers. The geometry, that's a little different. That's about the handling. So I got some numbers from the folks at K-Tech that are tuning for the Junior Cup, and that's what we're gonna feed in here, okay? But ride the bike to understand it, because remember, it's gonna be a lot different than the stock stuff. We see a lot of riders, they'll get the suspension and they'll go out there and it is different, okay? It's better, it's actually better, but we're all a little resistant to change. So don't freak out right away. Don't start changing clickers and changing everything. Ride the bike with the new set of tires to really understand it before you begin making changes. That is bar none the best way to do it. Expect it to be different, trust it, and know that it will be better. So we're gonna do some follow-up videos on this after I've ridden it. Max has ridden a little bit more to let you know the difference between the stock suspension and the K-Tech front and rear that we've installed on our STG R3.